So the reflection that we're working on here is, I noticed that I only mentioned Laurita and mentioned 2 girls in my post. Actually 1, 2, 3, 4. Mentioned 4, I think now. Is that right? I mentioned the debutante. I mentioned Madison. I call her the Carrot Top. And these are people that I care about. And Rebecca Goldstein and Laurita. Laurita's kind of the root of my philosophizing, because when I first met her, we ended up discussing something one night, and I'm desperately trying to recall the topic of our conversation, because it was something that we had a very long and protracted discussion about. And it's something that I should remember, given that I remember. And now this is how females and males, the difference in their memories. You know, it's important if you're going to constitute something like, see, I don't think there should be a feminist philosophy per se without there being a masculine philosophy. And I don't think there should be a masculine philosophy without there being a feminine philosophy. Unless you're thinking about, like, starting your own civilization. Like, if you're just men and you're trying to start your own civilization, then you can have just a masculine philosophy. But you really can't, because you have a world of females and males. And so we need something desperately like both today. We need a masculine, feminine philosophy. And we need why should there be feminist philosophy but not masculine, masculinist? There's feminism, but there's not masculinism. So, but that's got to be a philosophy too, right? Most girls that you go up to, if you say, do you have certain things that you like about guys? And they do. You know, it started out with Laurita informing me about a few of these things. She's like, you know, if you don't have a very good wardrobe, then you need to get a nice coat. You know, because you put your coat on, and then you kind of obscure the fact that the rest of your wardrobe's not so great. But then I began thinking that that's not right, because then you're just covering something up. That's like you're not willing to show your cards. And so I don't think that's quite, but that does what she meant more. She had said that a coat is one of the most important parts of your wardrobe, because it can really it can kind of make or break what you're wearing, if you will. And I sort of agree with that if you have a decent looking coat, but your trousers are not the best, or your shirt is not the best, you can end up looking better than you would otherwise. I don't know why this is, but the more and more I think about it, I come to realize that people do make judgments on the basis of seeing you, and that they're not unjustified in making such judgments. After all, they're looking at you. So, you know, they cannot help but make judgments of a certain kind. So I did mention, I think, 4 females in these postings that I do. You see, I can't care about all women. You know, I can't. That's too many women for me to be concerned about. I can be concerned in a kind of in the agape way. I can be concerned about all women, but in the particular way, if I go to enumerate, or if I go to say things of importance about this or that female, and that's not the whole female philosophy contingent that I care about. I care about Laurita in a different way than I care about those other females, because I've had a different relationship with her, a deeper and more personal relationship over the years. But I did make an effort at one time. I think I called Rebecca Goldstein. I sought her number, and I don't know if I ever ended up actually connecting with the Goldstein home. I thought that I did, but I wasn't sure. I think I did, because I don't think when I called, I don't think the person said, "Oh, this is not Rebecca Goldstein." But it doesn't really much matter. That was just a contrast to what she said about she had gotten to Princeton and she had wanted to call the philosopher Gödel, and she had failed. Her nerve failed, and she didn't call him. And she was stating it, as if she kind of regretted it. And so I'm kind of, earlier as I was thinking about this, I'm thinking about Leo Strauss had used this word, a German word, I won't pronounce it correctly, perhaps bodenstandikeit, rootedness, a kind of rootedness in the soil had been foreseen or was coming to emergence in modern philosophy that would make all rootedness in the soil in the past, that would surpass all rootedness in the soil of the past, because it would be the final kind of rootedness that could be attained, or the deepest kind of rootedness that could be attained. And he was looking for something like Joe Martin and I are looking for in the future, and we're wondering, like, how do we get to that? How do we get to a group of people where Rebecca doesn't have that Hebel-ridden look on her face, and where she's looking out and they're giving all kinds of different opinions, and she's like, well, but my opinion is, and then another person's like, but my opinion is, but she doesn't have that feeling when she's with Steve. So it kind of points. I don't have that feeling when I'm talking to Laurita, even though sometimes, she says things that I don't agree with, but then I know how to speak to her about it. I know how to say, I'm not thinking that, I'm thinking something else. But it shows you how, it's an aspect of biopolitics that I'm trying to point to here. And I think that the philosophers of biopolitics, like E.O. Wilson of Harvard, in the past had gotten to it indirectly, in a way by stating, or maybe in a way directly, by stating that man is an animal whose altruism, being able to be unselfishly kind to others and give something to them without expecting something in return, is a very narrow circle. And so it was one of the most important truths about our nature is that we are like that. Like that we can give unselfishly to friends, to family. It starts with family. E.O. Wilson says you can be altruistic towards your family, and you can be altruistic. You can't be altruistic towards yourself, because if you give yourself something, you're giving yourself something selfishly, usually. But is that always true? If I give myself reflections on a philosophy of founding bodenstandikeit, a rootedness, am I giving myself that selflessly? Or am I giving that to myself and now to others selfishly? Because I want them to thrive. See? And that's a good question. What does Strauss mean by rootedness in the soil of a community, of a social community? Because he engages in these reflections in his Husserl essays, his reflections on Husserl, and how Husserl had guided philosophy into that moment where it could raise this question of rootedness, of being. Now, I think Strauss's direction that he points in here is the Lucretian direction, so that the altruism that is shared by this community is a kind of hedonistic altruism. It is by no means essentially connected to the idea of war, because people can live as they live today. There can be a club of motorcyclists who philosophize that are females and males, and they don't have to be at war with anyone. They can be at peace with themselves in a world where other people don't do that. But there's just a few, and they're starting out with, they're saying, we have to start out with a community of agreeing about something, you see. Something has to be something that is a common interest. You can't have any groups that are founded on the basis of something where there's not some shared idea in common, and that doesn't therefore propel the group forward into its sociality and unity. But that's what's being sought, as in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. For Robert Pirsig, the author of that book, you are first finding that unity in your natural relationship with nature and with the natural relationship you have with the machine, the motorcycle, because you and the machine, slowly as you learn how to build the machine and how you learn to tune the machine and how you learn to ride in nature, you slowly are integrating yourself into nature. You are slowly making yourself feel as though you are one. And this is called subject-object identity in this very good book by Friedrich Weiser on German idealist thinking. See, German idealism begins with the right ideas about how do you found a community like this. Well, you begin thinking that one is needed based on experience of social, not disharmony, but not socialness that does not meet the standard of harmony that you desire. You first have to have a want for this greater kind of unity, or bodenstandikeit is the German word. You know, you experience that disunity among people, and you found it on something common. You know, I today would talk of each group. You know, there's Hispanic power, there's Black power movement, there's been a Black power movement, there's been a disintegration of European culture like no other that has ever taken place in the last 100 years. But there was only one white power movement, and it was so brutal that everybody thought that's not even acceptable. But yet, if you don't start with the roots of your being, if you don't start with what you are, you're not seeking to preserve something. See, every existence, every striving for social existence, every striving for unity, every striving for effective social interaction with other people is not necessarily a striving for power. It's a striving for unity and the experience of harmony in the essence of your being. It's strange that it has existed in the world before. You know, it's the reason why my dad's heart, when he was in Rockford, would be at 98 beats per minute, but when he'd take a trip to Spillville, Iowa, his hometown, it would beat at 72 beats per minute. You see? Because he was in a community where he remembered there being social roots there, and remembering there being people there. Just as Professor Glenn, if he goes back to the town where he grew up in Iowa, his heart's going to slow down because he feels that unity there. He remembers that you could put your vegetables out on a table there, and that you could leave your home, and then if somebody came around to get the ones you were selling, they put the money in the box, and you had it when you got home, and they didn't steal the vegetables. So he felt more unity. This is what we're striving for.